Okay, what's going on, everybody? We're here, we're live. I want to thank you all for joining me here today. And if you can hear and see me clearly, please drop a one in the live chat so we can get today's stream started. And while I'm waiting for the ones to come into the live chat, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button. That is one of the most important things you can do for this channel, if not the most important thing you can do for this channel, because that assists in making sure that those who are subscribed to this channel will get their notifications. And it also helps so that this video permeates throughout the YouTube algorithm, therefore pushing this video out to those who are interested in this type of content. Secondly, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms as well. That not only helps to make sure that people know that I'm currently live right now, but it also assists in making sure that this video permeate throughout the YouTube algorithm as well. So now that I see the ones are starting to come in, thank you very much, Christopher Perkins, we can get into today's show. So let's get into it and let's take a trip back to New York, right? As you can see, the title of today's stream is titled Adams and Hochul Promoting Non-Citizen Voting Via Work Permits, ? Well, before we dive too deep into that, where I want to start with first, but will eventually lead to that end point, is I want to show you guys and highlight to you all how Democrats are still putting out hit pieces on Eric Adams, right? Let me pull this up for you right now. Give me just a moment while I cue this onto the screen for you. But the hit pieces are still coming out. And this one that I'm pulling up for you right now, it comes by way of, I believe the site is called The New Republic, which is a Democrat-ran website, right? And the title of this hit piece is here. Adams to Dems drop dead, right? So now I'm not going to actually go through this article right now and read through it, but I did want to, like I said, bring it up for the moment because what it shows is that the Democrats are still making an example out of Eric Adams for aggressively critiquing Biden over the migrant crisis. But what we always have to remember is that despite his critiques of Biden, he's still a Democrat who's taking orders from, or I should say, he's still a Democrat who's taking orders from the DNC leadership team, right? That's why, despite all of the troubles and headaches that this crisis has caused Eric Adams in New York City, he still supports keeping the borders open versus closing them, which is what would make logical sense, especially given the headache that he's received via all this, right? And for those who aren't aware of that he did call to keep the borders open, I just want to play a quick video for you all, and then we'll get back into the discussion.
First, can you say who from this table is going with you and who isn't NYPD, who's not part of your security detail, is going with you south of the border? And then secondly, do you stand by your chief advisor's contention that the federal government needs to close the borders?
We believe the borders should remain open. That's the official position of this city, but we have made it clear there should be a decompression strategy that we could properly deal with the volumes that's coming into our city, and no cities should have to carry the burden of the national government.
You see, what we have to remember, right, is that Adams' critique of Biden is simply that of a disgruntled employee, right, who's upset that the brunt of the Biden crisis has fallen into his lap versus being evenly distributed, right, throughout all Democratic Party cities. And that's why we see now what's happening is Eric Adams is out here handing out one-way tickets to Democratic-led cities. So what does that mean? That means these migrants, so-called migrants, will be coming to a city near you very soon. Now let's get into that information, as that will continue to lead us down the pathway to worker permits equaling non-citizen voting. So let's get into that right now, right? Let's jump into this. And here's the article that I want to pull up for you now. And this article here comes from Politico, which is titled NYC is giving one-way tickets. One-way plane tickets. NYC offers migrants free travel anywhere to move. Okay, so let's jump into this very quickly. Mayor Eric Adams is ramping up efforts to fly migrants to their destination of choice, figuring it's cheaper than sheltering them for months on end. And he's simultaneously warning that those opting to stay in New York may be in for a winter of sleeping outside with shelters full. In recent days, the mayor of the nation's largest city has been steering people who were vacated from city shelters to a Manhattan office devoted solely to booking plane tickets, creating more uncertainty for new arrivals. I want to read that one more time. In recent days, the mayor of the nation's largest city has been steering people who were vacated from city shelters to a Manhattan office devoted solely to booking plane tickets, creating more uncertainty for the new arrivals. Dispersing them across the nation and the world harkens back to when the Democratic mayor ripped Republican governor in Texas and in Florida for sending migrants from the southern border to liberal enclaves. But City Hall officials defend their effort as different because the migrants aren't being coerced to leave. Now, I want to pause right there, right? Let's take a moment to pause with that statement that was made. This is different. What Eric Adams is doing is different from uh, Governor of New York, Governor Abbott, as well as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, because apparently he's not coercing these so-called migrants to leave New York. He's giving them the option that if you want to go somewhere else, I'll give you a plane ticket to go to where for you to go to wherever you want, and never come back because it's a one-way ticket, right? But the thing is that in Texas, they're not coercing anybody. That's not what's happening. If they want to stay in Texas, they can stay in Texas. The overwhelming majority of so-called migrants do stay in Texas, right? That's where they stay. And that's been a problem for Governor Abbott, right? Those who are coming to New York are choosing to come to New York. They know before even crossing the border that where they want to come to is New York. And when they cross the border and there's a line of buses ready to go, it's just a matter of take your choice. You want to stay here? You want to go to New York? You want to go to Chicago? Or do you want to go to Denver? Do you want to go to Washington, D.C.? Or do you want to go to Los Angeles? Where do you want to go? They're choosing to go there. But then we have to ask ourselves, why choose New York? What is it about New York that makes these so-called migrants know ahead of time that that's where I want to go? Well, I can't speak for why they were choosing that, we'll say a little over a year ago. But I can tell you, in my personal opinion, why I believe many are choosing New York now is because of the dog whistles that are being given out by New York Governor Kathy Hochul. Kathy Hochul is putting out dog whistles for migrants to come into the city by making statements like this. And let me pull that up for you right now. You see, when you make statements like this, Hochul says there's 32,000 jobs. Excuse me. Hochul said there's 32,000 jobs open for migrants, but feds have slowed job permit process to a crawl. When she announces that there are 32,000 jobs open for migrants, that is a dog whistle. You're letting everyone know on the other side of the border that not just America is open, but New York is open. New York City is open. That's what you're doing when you make statements like that, right? It's one thing to just simply say, hey, we need work permits. It's another thing to give an exact count of how many jobs are available for migrants in New York City. So now let's dive into that article a little bit right now. There are currently 185 of you in the live stream. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. Once again, that is one of the most, if not the most important thing you can do for me on this channel is hit the like button. And also a quick shout out to the supporters of today's show. Thank you very much, DSB, for being a 9-month-long channel member. I appreciate your support, DSB. DSB stated, keep up the great work. my warrior brother. I definitely will, DSB. And shout out to Omar Robel, I believe your last name is pronounced, for 100 AED. I don't know what AED is. I don't know what currency that is, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Thank you very much for contributing to today's show and for all of you who contribute to the live streams whenever I'm here giving this information. And thank you to those who contributed via Cash App. During the last live stream, I wasn't able to get to you, and I apologize for that. But now let's carry on, right? And let's get back into the article concerning Kathy Hochul's dog whistling to so-called migrants to have them come into the country by saying, hey, we have 30,000 plus jobs for migrants here in New York City, right? So, like I said, let's dive into that right now. So the article reads as such, right? Governor Kathy Hochul says there are 32,000 jobs ready and waiting for the immigrants who have flooded New York in recent months. But an apparent bottleneck in the federal work permit approval process has left them mostly unfilled. The number is about twice that, the number is about twice what Hochul said would be open earlier this month, when she said there would be about 18,000 jobs available. And I quote, direct quote from Kathy Hochul, "We've now identified, this is a new release, 32,000 jobs are waiting for the Venezuelans who up until now have not been able to work," the governor said Tuesday during an event on 34th Street. Once people have their legal status, there are jobs waiting for them, she said about the jobs which will be open to any migrants. Kathy Hochul is so dedicated to this dog whistling that it wasn't just simply good enough for her to put out there that we have jobs for migrants. It wasn't just good enough to say, hey, we have 18,000 plus. When she had the opportunity, she wanted to make sure to clarify, no, wait a minute. We have identified that we actually have 32,000 jobs available, not 18,000 jobs available for migrants. Now, outside of that simply being a dog whistle to encourage those from south of the border to cross the border and to make the choice to come to New York City, because by making statements like that, Kathy Hochul is actually advertising for so-called migrants to come to New York City. What is the significance of these work permits outside of these so-called migrants being able to work? Well, what I didn't know up until recently is that these work permits can also work as a gateway to non-citizen voting. Now, many of you remember months back, or actually over a year ago, when I covered how in New York City, City Council in New York City voted to put into law non-citizen voting for non-citizens who have been living and residing in New York City for at least 30 days. And then that was signed into law by the then governor at that time. I can't think of his name right now, right? Now, that law was struck down by the New York State Supreme Court. But as I told everyone throughout that time period after it was struck down, you shouldn't celebrate, right? The victory isn't won yet concerning that in New York, because they will be fighting it. And they have been fighting it in New York. But as they've been fighting it and people are digging more and more into this law to make non-citizen voting a reality in New York City, we are now coming to find out that worker permits for non-citizens will be used as a pathway to allow non-citizens to vote in local elections if this law gets overturned in a higher court, right? So now let's dive into that article right now. And before we do, there are 234 of you all here in the live stream right now. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. Like I always say, that is the most important thing you can do for this channel. Now, let's get into that article. Let me pull it up on the screen. Give me just a moment. So now, as you can see here, this article, excuse me, it's loading up. It should have been loaded up already. That's really annoying. This article is titled, Democrats are pushing work authorization for migrants so they can vote. Now, this is very interesting. Let's dive into this, right? If you think offering migrants luxury hotel rooms, free meals, laundry service, transportation, health care, and immigration lawyers is excessive, just wait until they can vote. Democrats are pushing to give non citizens the franchise in local elections in New York City, Boston, and other municipalities, as well as statewide in Connecticut. So, this non citizen voting stuff is spreading like wildfire throughout Democratic led cities and states. Okay. The number of migrants pouring across the southern border has hit a record high, according to data released Saturday. Illegal crossings soared 21% over the previous month. On a yearly basis, the figure reached 2.48 million. Democrats may find shock and distress. Find shock? Anyways, Democrats may find shock, I guess, and distress, but don't be fooled. Dems see these newcomers as their guarantee of a permanent voting majority in local elections. Not years from now, after the newcomers become citizens. No, right now. Mayor Eric Adams' rhetoric is typical. He warns that the overwhelming number of migrants arriving, 16,000 to 17,000 a month, will, quote, destroy the city. But he's also leading the legal effort to turn migrants into voters. I'm going to read that part one more time. And remember what I said about Eric Adams. At the end of the day, he's still just a Democrat who's taking his orders from the DNC, from DNC leadership team. So despite his criticisms of Biden and the Democrats concerning the migrant crisis, he's still following instructions. Okay. So let me read that part one more time since I interrupted the article, right? But I felt that was very important to highlight concerning Eric Adams. Adams and other, excuse me, where are we? Oops. Okay. Adams and other New York Democrats push Biden to I don't know why I lost that just now. I'll just start from here. Mayor Eric Adams' rhetoric is typical. He warns that the overwhelming number of migrants arriving 16 to 17,000 a month will destroy the city. There we go. But he is also leading the legal effort to turn migrants into voters. There we go. Got it. All right, let's continue on. Adams and other New York Democrats push President Joe Biden to expedite work authorizations for them. They said it's about making migrants self-sufficient. Maybe, but Dems have another powerful motive. The fine print of New York City's Our City, Our Vote law, indicated in December of 2021, says anyone with a work authorization who has been in the city for a mere 30 days can vote, even if the person entered the country illegally. Biden's recent action, fast tracking work authorizations for Venezuelan border crossers who make up about 41% of the Big Apple's recent arrivals, 41%, will make tens of thousands of them eligible to vote under city law as soon as they obtain working papers. That is, if New York City's voting law is allowed to go into effect. A big if the law is tied up in court, right? A big if, because the law is currently tied up in court. A group of Republicans led by Staten Island Borough President Vito Facilo, I guess, Facila, sued, arguing the state constitution grants the right to vote to every citizen. A Staten Island judge brought the argument and struck it down. A Staten Island judge brought the argument and struck down the law. But Adams' law department is appealing that ruling in a higher court. Eric Adams' law department is appealing that ruling, arguing that the state constitution does not specifically prohibit non-citizen voting. This is Eric Adams doing this, right? This is what he's attempting to do. And that was why I wanted to make it a point to echo earlier that we must always keep in mind that at the end of the day, Eric Adams is just a Democrat who's following instructions and doing what he's being told to do, despite his gripes with the Democratic Party. Eric Adams is nothing more than simply a disgruntled employee. That's all that he is. He's a disgruntled employee who is upset that the brunt of the Biden crisis fell on his lap. Now, what I want to do, because I think this is very important as well, just so people can't say, "Oh, this isn't true and it's reaching," and we I don't believe you, right? Misinformation, fake news, because that's what people like to say when they disagree with you. They never actually point out what you're talking about and saying, "Hey, what you said isn't true because X, Y, and Z." They just say it's fake news and misinformation. But what I want to do now, and I'm going to leave the link in the live chat, and hopefully I'll remember to leave the link and the pin in the comment section below, is that I want to leave you all with the link to the actual bill, so you can read it for yourself. And you don't have to read the whole thing in its entirety, because it's made plain from the very beginning of the bill that the purpose of this bill is not just simply to have non-citizen voting, but is to allow those with work permits to be able to vote as well. It states it right from the beginning. Let me show you that very quickly as we close this video out, right? And as it states here, and it doesn't appear, it's very small. But like I said, I left the link for you. A local law to amend the New York City Charter in relation to allowing lawful permanent residents and persons authorized to work in the United States in New York City to participate in municipal elections. And just so you know, this law, right, this bill, if you just wanted to Google it, maybe you don't have access to link, maybe I forgot to put the link in the comment section below after the stream. Just type in INT space 1867, right? I believe INT stands for intro 1867, New York City Council, and this bill will pop up. But let's just read this quick paragraph right here as we close this out. For purposes of this chapter, the following terms have the following meaning. Municipal elections, the term municipal election means any general primary or runoff election for a municipal office, any special election for a municipal office, including but not limited to any election in which all candidates are nominated by independent nominating petitions pursuant to the charter, and any municipal referendum. Municipal office. The term municipal office means the office of mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and council member. Municipal referendum, and council member municipal referendum. The term municipal referendum means an election for the approval of law as defined in Section 2 of the Municipal Home Rule Law, submitted to the voters of the city of New York, municipal voter. The term municipal voter means a person who is not a United States citizen. Here's the icing on the cake. The term municipal voter means a person who is not a United States citizen on the date of the election on which he or she is voting, who is either a lawful permanent resident or authorized to work in the United States, who is a resident in New York City and will have been such a resident for 30 consecutive days or longer by the date of such election, who meets all qualifications for registering or pre registering to vote under the election law, except for possessing United States citizenship, and who has registered or pre registered to vote with the Board of Elections in the city of New York under this chapter. Okay? So, in closing, as we can see here, and once again, just going back to the very beginning, like I said, it states it at the onset of this bill, a local law to amend New York City charter in relationship to allowing lawful permanent residents and persons authorized to work in the United States in New York City to participate in municipal elections. As we can see here, the rush to have worker permits for these so-called migrants runs a lot deeper than just simply, hey, we want them to work so that they can be self-sufficient and that we don't have to take care of them ourselves. It runs a lot deeper than that, because now what's tied in is law that state that if you have a worker permit, despite the fact that you came across the border illegally, you can still vote in New York City local elections so long as you have been a resident in the city for 30 consecutive days. So this is something that we need to keep an eye out on. It's something that we need to keep watch on and see how things turn about as this law has now entered into higher court, and that could possibly be overturned. That's if Eric Adams' defense team is successful, right? That's if it's successful. But we just have to keep an eye on that and see how that works out. So, with all that being said, I want to thank you all for joining me today. There are 308 of you here in here right now. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. That is the most important thing that you can do for this channel. Thank you very much, Cutthroat Nash, for always coming through and showing support. Didn't they try this already? They did try it already. And what they have done now is they're taking it to a higher court to try to get the ruling reversed so that non-citizens can vote in local elections. And thank you very much, Timothy Bright. Timothy Bright writes, blacks selling out blacks is worse than free slaves stabbing Harriet Tubman. Yeah, it's a horrible thing, man. It's a horrible thing. But it is to be expected when it comes to, black politicians. They're sellouts. That's just who they are. They're working for themselves, not for the people, let alone the black community. It is what it is until we change it. So, with all that being said, I want to thank you all for joining me today. Hopefully, today's live stream was a fruitful one and you got a lot out of it. And I will catch you next week as I go live some more. And also be able to make sure you look out for some pre-upload videos that I'm going to be uploading over the weekend. I typically don't upload content over a weekend normally, but I will start uploading content over the weekend now, starting this weekend moving forward. And with the last minute buzzer beater, there's always somebody with the last minute buzzer beater. Thank you very much, Nikki P, for the last minute shot at the end with the support of a $20 super sticker. I appreciate you all for the support that you show me. Have a great afternoon and a safe evening. Peace.